So, hello everyone. Welcome to this Dive In with Dom session. Good to see you here. Some familiar faces, some new faces, or people who don't usually pop around here. So, you're all welcome. Anybody here who's totally new to inquiry or first time here? Pop your hand in there. No one. Okay, good. Good. Um, So it's interesting. So we have quite a small group coming along this evening, and I always think it's interesting what that reflects about the topic. Like you see, some topics people get really interested in, and a lot of people come along, and some people think not so interesting. But actually, this evening's topic, at least in my view, is a very interesting topic, and it is something that is very I think quite underexplored in terms of inquiry. So it's actually something that we're going to have some fun with and hopefully learn something new about. And that, of course, our topic this evening is the topic of functioning, which is really doing. Like, what do you do? What do you do? Does your inquiry get to this question? What do you do? And really, of course, when you're living life, doing anything in your life, this question of doing and functioning and acting is, fundamental. So I see it as a very interesting kind of bridge between our inner process and our life, our living. So this is the third in a series of three. We started off looking at simply exploring what's here, what's arising in your experience, what is there. And this is, in a certain sense, foundational. Like that's the basis of inquiry. You find out what's here, what's showing up. And we notice that as we do that, it starts flowing and changing. And our experience not only has a here-ness, but it has a dynamism. It has a flowing, changing, shifting dynamism. One of the ways that shows up is, for example, in our wishes and our longings. Right? You have a longing for something. It's your soul moving in a certain direction. So that's a kind of second sort of angle on our experience. And then this third angle is the actual functioning. And in the sort of usual diamond approach point of view, there's sort of focus more on recognizing realization, being, as one step of the process, and then actualization or functioning as a second step. So first we recognize where we are and what we are and what's going on, and then we express it and we live it. So realization and actualization, and in a certain sense, the flow and the dynamism is a third leg that I've been bringing in this little series. So, before we dive into this intriguing topic, just a little reminder about Dive In with Dom. So, this is a public forum. Everything that goes on in this main meeting room is recorded, and we share those recordings as part of our effort to make inquiry available to people and to provide a resource to support people to learn more about the practice of inquiry. So if you're here and if you're participating, especially in the Q&C at the end, know that that will be recorded and posted. If you're interested in looking at any of the past topics, including the previous two of this series where we looked at being and flow, you can go to the YouTube channel. You'll find them all there. If you are watching this for the first time on YouTube, then you'll be able to do an exercise a little later on your own. If you're doing it here in the group, you'll be able to do that exercise if you want to in a breakout room with somebody else. And what happens in those breakout rooms is not recorded. So that's kept confidential, and that's just between you and the person you find yourself in the breakout room with. We have here, as usual, a whole mix of ranges, a whole range of levels of experience. So there's some people who've been inquiring for like several decades, and there's people who are more recent to the practice. So it's one of the nice things about this space too, that we can all learn from each other, and different people at different stages of familiarity with the practice will tend, might bring up different angles. It's all good. So you're all welcome. Um, we're going to start this evening with a short practice. So you want to find a comfortable seat, and we'll begin with a short meditation. So just take a moment to sense into your feet and your legs and your seat. Just landing here, landing in your experience. So this immediate experience of your sensations, your feelings, your thoughts, all of this is what we explore with inquiry. Now, I might say to you right here, see if you can find some adjustment that will make your posture more suitable for your meditation. Maybe it'll make your spine a little more upright. Maybe it is to relax the back of your neck a little, lengthen the back of your neck and make that adjustment. Maybe it is to screw up your eyes a little and then relax them to let go of any tension there. Maybe it's to rest your hands on your lower belly to bring more focus to that area, because we're going to be doing that belly meditation, concentration meditation. So you'll notice that there are all these little adjustments that you might find, or you might notice that actually you don't need to make an adjustment. That if you just sense yourself right now, how you're sitting, how you're positioned feels right. So that's the first kind of glimpse of what we're exploring. That even in this little question of how to adjust your posture, you can find out what's true for you. You can actually look and see, what do I need to do? Do I need to do anything? Is it good? And you can feel that. And you can recognize what's true for you. So that is a little way in which a small action can be part of an inquiry. So now, let your attention come down to your lower belly and place your focus on your lower belly area. Take a moment to notice what you sense there, whatever it might be. There's no right or wrong here. From the warmth of your hand, the movement of your belly with your breathing, maybe some presence, emptiness, tingling, aliveness, fullness, sensing your lower belly. And so your practice is to place your attention there with the immediacy of your felt sense. And if you notice you start wandering off and your primary attention gets caught up in thinking or feeling or something going on around you, as soon as you notice that, the right action is to let go of that and bring your attention back to your belly. So again, there's a doing here in the practice. You are taking a certain action, placing your attention on your belly and bringing it back when you notice it's wandered off. So we'll sit together for a few minutes and practice. And take one more breath, sensing your lower belly. And on the exhale, you can let go of that focus. And again, begin sensing your arms and legs. Taking a moment to really get in touch with the immediate sensations of your arms and legs, your hands and feet. Notice the pace that you need to do that at. What feels like the right pace for you. When you're ready to add listening, and looking. So you're including the sounds around you and your visual experience of your environment. Sensing, looking, and listening. Like pace is an interesting thing with functioning. You can notice if you're doing something too fast, doing it just right. So I'm inviting us to begin tuning into those kinds of cues, those inner feelings, that realm of truth that relates to our functioning. So maybe it's useful just to begin unpacking a little what exactly I mean by functioning. Because actually, functioning is a whole universe, it's a whole world. So it goes from the very smallest scale to the very biggest scale. So at the small scales, you could look at things like we did in the meditation, like posture or gesture or your expression. How does my state express in my body? Something that you can feel into. We could go a little bigger and look at the movements we might make, for example, in expressing feelings. So when you're inquiring and you find yourself feeling joy, what kind of movement does that invite? Or if you're feeling anger or you have some kind of reaction, like what does that make you want to do? Like oftentimes they're like, "Argh," right? So something like that. Want to strangle them. So those kind of movements, it's a movement, it's an expression, a bodily movement that is expressing some kind of state that's present. It can get even bigger, right? So we can look at like, what do I do? What do I need to do in my life? What do I need to do in a particular situation? Right? What is right action? What is appropriate action? So the whole concept of right action has a, in some spiritual traditions, that's really a thing, right action. So how do you tell? How do you know what's right action? How do you determine what is right action for you? And that could be, like a small thing, like how do you organize your day, or what do you need to get done today, or what do you need to get done this week? And it can go all the way through to very big questions, like what are you doing? What do you want to do with your life? Or if there's some kind of big life decision facing you, or a relationship, or a career, or moving, or health, right? All of these things, all of these life situations can, at certain times, require us to take action, to do something. So, how does our inquiry help us here? Does inquiry come in here? Or is inquiry just a spiritual thing that we go and we just explore how we're feeling? So, as we'll see, inquiry, I think, is very useful, very valuable, kind of essential really for certain kinds of action. And these kinds of action and expression are a very natural arena for inquiry. They're a space where it makes sense to explore. Remember, what is inquiry? Inquiry is exploring what's true for you, really finding out what is true for you. And you can ask, what do I need to do? And feel into that question in just the same way that you can ask, what am I feeling right now? Right? Or what is my sense of myself right now? What is the state of my consciousness right now? You can feel into that, right? And you can feel into, well, what do I need to do here? What do I want to do here? What kind of movement or gesture or expression comes out of where I am? So we can begin to see here that there is a connection between where we're coming from, what we're experiencing ourselves to be, how we're experiencing ourselves, how we're experiencing our life or the other person or whatever it is that we're dealing with, if that's relevant, which sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But we can look into what is here And as we get a sense of that, we can see what kind of action comes out of that. What am I wanting to do? What do I feel I need to do? And here, this is the kind of place that inquiry is very valuable for exploring. Inquiry is not so useful, or possibly not useful at all, for figuring out how to practically solve problems. Right? That's not really totally what inquiry is for. So, for example, if your car is broken down, right, then figuring out how to open the hood, check what's going on, or where to find a good mechanic and to contact them and, get your car fixed. Not necessarily the best sort of use of inquiry. I'm not sure inquiry will be that valuable there. But if you wake up in the morning and you ask yourself, gosh, what do I really need to do today? What's important for me to do today? One of the things that may throw up for you is, I really need to get my car fixed. I've been procrastinating and putting it off for weeks and months. And I realize that actually, I really need to do this. And then I can get interested in, well, how come I haven't done it? Soon as I think about doing it, I start getting anxious. And then I go and veer off and distract myself with something else. Boom, wow. Now we've got something interesting we can really inquire into. So right now, the functioning that I'm doing is I'm just avoiding it. That's what I'm doing. That's the functioning. And where it's coming from is something inside me that feels anxious. Right. So the movement then of our inquiry will tend to be, okay, so it's that anxious place that's making me do what I'm doing. I can now understand that link, but now clearly I need to inquire into that anxious place. There's something there I need to find out about, right? To explore into and discover, open up. So this begins to give you a sense of where uh, inquiring into action can come in. What's definitely true is that for most people, when they start inquiring, and in fact, I said as much in my book, in Diving in the Inner Ocean, I say what you do when you're inquiring, you're going to dive into your inner world to find out what's going on there, and you're going to pause the action on the surface. So you're actually going to stop doing, right? The first movement to actually practice, to go, okay, now I'm going to practice, I'm going to inquire, means you stop taking action out there. Right? You stop even necessarily trying to figure out what to do out there, and you turn the gaze inwards to find out, how am I experiencing things? What is it that's going on in this consciousness, in this being, that is making me experience things the way that I am and is giving rise to certain impulses to do things the way that I want to do them. And we start exploring that. We start discovering that. We start finding out what is actually going on underneath the surface. And I think if I were writing it now, I would slightly, it's like a subtle tweak, but I think it's a good tweak that it's as valid a place to start off asking, well, what am I doing? Or what do I want to do? You can genuinely start your inquiry there. Well, I'm talking about some situation in my life. This is what I'm doing with it right now. This is what I feel like I want to do. And you can unpack that and see what that is. And I think that is a valid starting point for your inquiry. But that can become a trap. Some people will sit down to inquire and they talk about what's going on in their life and what they want to do for an hour or 15 minutes or however long they inquire for. And the problem is you see very little actual inquiry going on. Mostly what they're trying to do is to solve the problem. Now, there's another dive in with Dom we did, I can't remember when, last year sometime, on this question of problem solving. So problem solving is, in a way, trying to figure out what to do. But what makes it problematic is that we're not pausing the problem solving to turn around and to dive deeper and to go, okay, how come I'm experiencing it the way I am? So, for most people, I would say for many inquiries, it is a natural movement that the inquiry may begin on the surface of your life with some situation, and you could clarify your perception of what you need or want to do there, right? That's a totally valid thing. I feel like I really need to leave this person, or I need to leave this job, or I need to stand up and speak my truth, right? Go for it. Find out what it is you feel you need to do. And the next step is every bit as important because that is just one side of it. The next question is, as I'm feeling that that's what I want to do, like where is that coming from in me? What is giving rise to that urge or that impulse? And that's where it starts to get really interesting. So, in a certain sense, then we park the action. We stop splashing around at the surface and we begin diving deeper. Now, what you might find in there, of course, is all kinds of things. So as you're contemplating where am I coming from in this, oh, I feel like I really need to knuckle down and just try harder. And you inquire into that a little bit, and what do you see? Oh, there's my superego. My superego is totally shitting on me and beating me up and making me feel bad. And the whole reason that I feel that that's what I need to do is coming from my superego. And maybe you never recognized that before, right? So one common source of our actions, one place our actions might be originating from or influenced by is your superego. It'll get in there, it'll tell you what to do, it'll tell you you're rubbish if you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing. Your superego will have all kinds of ideas about what you should do, how you should do it, what it should take, how easy it should be or shouldn't be. You know, there's the whole world of the inner critic there can show up around our functioning. So exposing that, right, is then very helpful. Because once you then know, okay, that's my superego, then you can work with your superego a bit, do some work, find out what's going on, judgment opens up. You might find then afterwards, when you're no longer under the sort of whip of that judgment, that what you need to do looks completely different. Right? And this is really the magic, right? This is the whole magic of inquiry, the whole flow that can come into our experience is that where you start and what you think you need to do then, you go through a whole process of unraveling the layers that are making it seem like that. And where you come to at the end, it may look very, very different. Superego, of course, is not the only thing you'll find. You might find yourself coming from a whole lot of beliefs and ideas from your history, your conditioning. That may show up in the sort of ideas or norms you have, beliefs you have about the kind of person that you are. Oh, I'm a kind of shy, quiet person, so I like to stay home and be quiet. So what do? You do all the things that support that kind of identity. And if you explore into that, at some point you might actually come across that self-image and be able to bring that whole self-image into awareness and to recognize, oh, actually, all that functioning is coming from this sense of myself. And as tends to happen when you bring a self-image really into the light and see it for what it is, it begins to open up and dissolve because it's not really substantial or real. It's just a piece of an idea from history. And once again, once you've gone through that whole process and that self-image begins to loosen, you might suddenly find, well, what do I feel like doing here? Maybe it will be something totally different. You realize, oh, actually, I really feel like going out tonight. I'm going to go out and go dancing. And I haven't done that in years. And I always thought I just wanted to stay home and be quiet, but actually, hey, that's what I feel like doing, right? Maybe that can happen. So you see, what we do is we begin to just expose the patterns and the structures that are really expressing themselves in our functioning. So, superego, self-images, the whole bang shoot, it can go all the way down. A lot of the time, what we find in there at some point might be some kind of soul child, right? Some young part of us. So there you are thinking, oh, I'm just gonna, uh, I don't know. I'm going to go and I need to go and speak to that person. I need to make sure that they see me and that they get me and they get my perspective and all of this. And you inquire into it and you realize, oh, actually, I'm coming from a sense of a little kid who feels not seen, and I need to go in there and make them see me. And right. So we're coming from some young place in this. Whenever we're having a big emotional reaction of any kind, fear, anxiety, anger, rage, hatred, sadness, you name it. Not always, but a lot of the time, far more time than we might like to admit. Actually, where that's coming from within us will include some young part of our consciousness. So when we again we dive in and we explore what's true. Like, well, where is this coming from in me? As I feel the urge to do that, like, what am I feeling myself to be? You realize, oh God, yeah, I kind of feel like a little kid, right? Well, again, then it's very exciting. Okay, I'm actually trying to live the life of a little kid. It's a good discovery. At least then you know it, right? Most people are doing that and just not aware of it, right? So then you can bring that little kid into the light, see them more, be with them, open up that part of your psyche. And this is so important because one of the other things that you'll see, and many of you probably discovered already, that simply trying to get the needs of that little child met out in the world by getting people to do what you want or by doing what the little kid wants you to do doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. It keeps that pattern intact. So you will keep being that little kid, trying to get the needs of that little kid met. And what that will mean is that you have to live the life that that little kid can lead, with all the limitations and constraints that come along with it. And the difficulty with that, sorry to say, is that you aren't a little kid anymore. So at some point, those impulses and those urges and those needs, as compelling and emotionally charged as they feel, will simply not actually be the truth for you. They won't be what's really true. They won't be what really serves you. So when we understand that, we begin to see, okay, it's another insight. Okay, so right action, part of right action, actually, what's really useful is not going with the impulses of these structures, but actually beginning to inquire, beginning to turn to them and to open them up and to clarify more where we're coming from in our impulses. Animal soul, instincts, another thing. We start to see, oh, the whole reason I want to do that, I keep feeling like I have to keep working. Got to keep working. I got to work over the weekend. I got to work every night, wake up in the morning, got to be working. And you explore into that, you dive into it and find out, huh, this impulse, where is it coming from? Some point, maybe you feel like some kind of hungry, scratchy, starving rat. Like you just want to, like, I just got to do more. I got to get more, do more, get more. And it's coming from very deep, instinctual part of yourself. They don't call it the rat race for nothing, as it turns out. Like a hungry rodent. So maybe that's informing your actions. And again, kind of bringing that to light and seeing it and understanding it can bring about a whole transformation. And of course, we can be coming from our deficiencies. It's another commonplace, right? What's making me do this? trying to make that person value me, make them love me, make them support me, make them leave me alone and give me peace, make them encourage me, make them value me, all the things we try to get from other people, right? And really, what we're doing there is our actions are just trying to fill our deficiencies, right? And are coming from and expressing our deficiencies. And of course, the last possibility is that our action is actually coming from our presence, from our true nature. Like, oh, what do I need to do now? And as I contemplate that, I feel whatever it is, the sense of the fullness of my being, or a sense of strength and aliveness and boldness, or a sense of solidity and kind of rested, confident determination, or a feeling of sweet goodness or loving kindness. And so all the qualities of presence that could arise, we can be feeling that and in touch with that. And as we're recognizing that and knowing that is what we are, we can ask, okay, so what do I need to do here? Right? How does this live? How does this quality, or how do I in this moment respond to the situation of my life that I find myself in? Right? How does my being want to use this free morning? Or how does my being engage with doing my taxes? Or sitting down having coffee with a friend? Or deciding where I want to live? Right? So our presence can be involved. And when we're in touch with our presence, we can explore what is it that we want to do. So really, the whole thing is to see that all the time you're living, you're relating, your expression, your personal expression in your life at a big scale and at a small scale is reflecting basically where you're coming from in your psyche, in your soul. And we can start from the recognition of the action, and then we can dive in to explore, where am I coming from? Where does this impulse come from? And as we clarify that and open that up and allow the magic of inquiry and the whole inner transformation that happens, at some point, then you can come back to that question from the place that you then find yourself in and go, okay, so how about now? How does it seem now? And oftentimes it's very different. We might start off in some reactive, angry place or hurt place, and it feels like we have to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to go and make them whatever, or I've got to go and tell them this, or I've got to cut them off and never speak to them again, or, whatever it might be. And you inquire and go through it, and hurt and pain and compassion and all sorts of things arise. And then at the end, you're not coming from that reaction. You're in a totally different place. And then you ask yourself, okay, so now, how does that seem now? What do I feel I need to do now? And you may be surprised at how very, very different it seems. Things that seemed urgent and pressing and compelling to your ego, when you really work it through and find yourself in a place of presence, may seem totally different. Different charge, different energy. And so it becomes a very natural thing. So one of the reasons that we don't always spend a lot of time focusing on this directly in inquiry is because, in a certain way, as long as we're doing the work on the inside, we're kind of clarifying what's coming up, where am I coming from, going through all that inner process, then in some ways, the living tends to take care of itself. As the person that you experience yourself to be shifts, so that you're coming less from your superego, right? Less from your soul child, less from your history, and little by little, more and more from your presence, from your beingness. The actions that you take in your life will just naturally tend to change. And they'll change without you thinking about it or needing to think about it. They change without you having to make intentional decisions about, well, now I'm going to do X, Y, Z. So that does happen. And I think it's a valid thing. I think it's a valid thing to also every so often really contemplate what you're doing, contemplate how you're living, or to take a reaction to a particular situation in your life, and when you've worked it through all the way, to really come back to the question of, okay, so what do I really need to do here? What do I need to do? So that's a little tour of living and functioning and how that can come into our inquiry. Maybe a few more things to say about it in terms of, so always in inquiry, as I said at the beginning, what we focus on is the truth. You're finding out what's true. And it's good to notice, to really grok that what you want to do or need to do in a situation is something that you can actually tell, right? You can actually feel that, you can tell that. So you can sense yourself and you can feel like, yeah, in this situation, I want to do, it kind of makes me want to do that. As I'm in touch with this young part of myself, it makes me want to do this. This is the urge that comes, right? You can actually feel the truth of that. It's a, if you like, a valid domain of truth. And similarly, when you're in touch with some kind of presence, you can really find, okay, what do I need to do here? As with all these domains, one of the things that may arise, will probably arise at some point, is nothing. What do I need to do? Nothing. I can't think of anything. It doesn't feel like that's even a particularly interesting or valid question right now. And you can hang out with that. Okay, it doesn't feel like I need to do anything. That's interesting. Let me just feel that. How is it to recognize that and notice that? And I was so sure I was going to find what I needed to do. So the more we begin to zoom in on that question and to feel into where these movements towards action come from within us, that may begin to connect us then deeper and deeper with different realms of our inner world. And it's worth mentioning for those in the diamond approach that this, of course, is very particularly relevant for the aspect of the pearl, right? The personal essence. So living and functioning and the part of us that can live and function and be in the world and express our truth, right? That really is the pearl is the presence that is that does that. So at some point, that quality is likely to begin to arise in different ways as we contemplate action. Good. So I think I want to pause there. Said enough to give you a couple of things to think about with it. And maybe what we'll do is a short exercise. And I think we're doing fairly well on time. So, Susan, maybe you want to pop people into groups of 3 instead of 2. And you can look into what I've been talking about. So that's in a very general sense, the exercise. Take a few minutes to look into how you include functioning, action, and expression in your inquiry. You know what? That's one thing I didn't mention, which I do want to go back to. So I've been talking a lot there about action in the big sense of the word, like taking action. And then at the slightly smaller scale, there is the question of expression, right? And the expression, for example, of emotions or of qualities of presence. So this can be very useful, right? When you're inquiring, for example, you might find yourself getting in touch with a particular feeling. And the question is like, how do you want to express it? How does it express in your body? Maybe it makes you want to push away, right? So you're like, no, I want that to get away. Or maybe it makes you want to fold up your arms and sort of turn inwards like this. Or maybe you're feeling some kind of collapse and it makes you just want to melt and lie down in a little puddle. Or there's some kind of aggression and you feel like, I just want to hit them, right? I want to kick them or hit them or. So all of these kinds of actions are things that you can inquire into, right? We're not talking about acting them out in life. This is fundamentally important, right? We're talking about finding out within the sacred space of our inquiry space, how does this energy express? How does it come up in my body, right? How can I, and as I let that happen, if I'm not stopping that expression, if I'm letting that happen in my inquiry space, what's the effect that that has? What impact does that have? Right? So often, like something like anger, somebody's been corking it up a long time, and they're all tense and anxious and all the rest of it. As it comes out, and they imagine they're grabbing someone and shaking them, and let all the anger flow. And suddenly you find after a couple of minutes, you're like, oh God, I feel so much better now. I don't feel angry. I feel kind of big and strong. I feel like I don't have to take nonsense from anybody. Do I feel angry? Well, not exactly. So our reactions, as we allow ourselves to express them and to give them action, right, can unfold in very interesting ways that can be important for our inquiry. And as I say, we had a session, a dive in with Dom some time back on acting out. It's not about acting it out in your life. It is about finding out what is this energy that's flowing and seeing what it's trying to accomplish. The other place, actually, I see people struggle with that is if there's some kind of quietening down energy, and they're like, oh God, I feel like I just want to go quiet. I just want to relax. I just want to forget about everything, but I can't. I've got to, blah, 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 for all the reasons they think they can't. And again, when they let themselves actually act, when they let themselves express that feeling, okay, it feels like I just want to put my head on the table and just collapse and lie here for a minute or two. When they actually let themselves do that, something very interesting unfolds. So, a lot of times, our inquiry will be exploring things that are trying to express in our process that couldn't or that we think can't. And yet, we actually, when we give ourselves the space to express them, to let them come and to feel into them, they tend to open up. So, that's two sides of functioning. The kind of bigger scale of things where we're talking about taking action and what I need to do, and the smaller scale things of just how do I express my state in the gestures or movements or sounds of my body. So back to the question. Explore how you include functioning, action, and expression in your inquiry. Is this something you include? Or is it something that you tend not to include? If you like, you might pick a situation in your life or somewhere where you're having a reaction. That's always an interesting place. And explore what you feel you need to do there. What is it that you feel you need to do? And then see if you can explore where are you coming from? Where is that impulse to do coming from in you? What part of you is it expressing? Is it your superego, your child? And you want to find that out not by analyzing it or thinking about it, but as you feel the urge, the impulse to do something, you're feeling directly, what am I? What do I feel myself to be? What is here right now as I'm talking about this action. So each person will just have 5 minutes, 5 minutes each, and then we'll come right back here. So let's add an extra sort of 5 minutes to say hello and uh, meet each other, and we'll be back here in 20 minutes. Or let's make it, we can make it like 18 minutes. I'm sure that's enough. All right, and enjoy. If you're not going to do the exercise, please drop off now. You don't have to do it. It is the part that a lot of people find very useful and interesting. So if you're going to stay on, stay on. If you're going to drop off, then now's the time so Susan doesn't put you in a breakout room. Oh, welcome back. And I'm curious what you find. How was it to look into this particular topic? What did you see about inquiry and functioning? Any questions or things to share? Yeah, Lisa, go ahead.
Um, I so I was finding that the two you kind of flip back and forth between what do I want to do, what do I need to do? And those are two very, very different things for me, extremely
Mm.
different. So is it like you go down the road of what would I want, what do I want to do, and then you find out more about that, and then go down the road of what do I need to do, and then find more about that part, because those are very different. There's probably lots of different parts, but they're very different and they want very different things.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's great. It's a great distinction. Yeah. So different kinds of action. What I actually need to do. What do I want to do? What what does somebody else want me to do? What do they actually need? I mean, there are many, kind of different nuances, different sort of sources for our action. So what you're pointing to there just really unpacks further the variety of action, right? There can be um, like one way of thinking about right action is like, okay, well, what do I really need to do here? What's the appropriate thing? If I really consider all the different elements of the situation, what really is appropriate? What really fits? What's really right? So that's one kind of question. Another kind of question. And there are situations where that's the right kind of thing to look into. But there are other situations where it might be more about, well, like, what's my personal, what do I want to do here? What's my way of, doing something here or expressing something here? And then there are kinds of actions like things we need to do for others. Like, you know, what do I need to do for this person that I love? Or how do I express my love for that person? Right? How do I make them let me take care of them as I always want to take care of them? Or maybe they want me to do something else. So I think it's beautiful. I'm not answering your question at all beyond simply to say these are all valid areas that you can explore.
And how can you determine whether it is an ego part or super ego, or it's coming from
Yeah.
presence?
Yeah. How indeed? How do you tell? How do you tell? How do you tell?
How do I tell?
Yeah.
I don't know. If I think that it feels like when there's a flow, when there's just like an idea that comes kind of out of nowhere, where and it feels right, and there's a flow to it that is
Hmm.
just like easy, and like, oh, I want to do this, and it's easy, and it's here, and
Hmm.
that seems more like presence to me
Hmm.
than
Hmm.
coming from my mind that is like, my timer says I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to like that feels different.
Beautiful. Okay, so there you go. So you're onto something, right? You're beginning to recognize action, not only different kinds of action, but action coming from different parts of your consciousness. And you can see, oh, there's this thing coming from your mind telling me I have to do this and this and this, or there's something that feels very different. Now, Lisa, the more you sense yourself and your experience, and you begin to discriminate the difference between those two experiences, right? In other words, in any experience, you can really feel into, okay, so as I'm feeling my mind telling me all that stuff from my schedule that I have to do, let me sense myself. Let me feel it in my body. Let me see what's really going on here, right? And if there's your superego present or your, so something else, at some point you'll recognize that, you'll see that, right? So sensing yourself, being in touch with your experience, and taking the time to really find out, okay, where is this coming from? Right? That's really that's what's needed. And with the thing that just arises and seem free and easy, well, maybe you inquire into it and you explore, and sometimes things that just seem free and easy might be coming from your soul child, right? Who knows? But sometimes you inquire into it, you feel into it, you're like, yeah, well, I just feel very light and free, and my heart feels light and open. So when you're sensing your heart and you're sensing your mind and you're sensing your belly and your body, then you can tell, right? And so, might be a mix. That's also another thing that can happen. There's a little bit of child and a little bit of superego and a little bit of presence. Sure. So it's just a case of seeing where is it coming from, what's present for you as you're in that. Make sense?
Thanks.
Yeah, sure. You're welcome. Yeah, Naomi.
Um, thank you so much for these little Zoom classes and um, breakout rooms. So I don't know if I have a question as much as I just wanted to share is the
Hmm,
value,
sure.
just 5 minutes. Um, I've been having these heart palpitations and they come and go. And what was revealed was that I have this tendency pattern to like jump up into the mind and
Mhm,
heart just doesn't get to be included.
mhm,
And when I allowed myself to slow down, I could begin to like look at this pattern of this child, so child, reaching out.
mhm,
Oh, I want my dad to accept me. Oh, I was so desperate. And I carried that up just this morning in an interaction. And I'm going, this feels really painful.
mhm,
And I'm going, what is going on? And it's not even somebody that's I'm in a relationship with it's a neighbor and it's a deep desire to be on this texting thing with everybody so I could be in on the loop. And because I'm not in their Christian oriented meetings, I don't get to be on the loop. And I live with all these people in my building. And I was just thought, wow, why won't they let me in? And it's not like I haven't gone to their meetings, but I stopped going.
right.
And so okay, I got to slow down here. But it's just like I can feel this opening happening inside of me and
Mm.
my heart, and it just feels really beautiful in here.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Why I ignore it.
Right.
So, you know,
Exactly. Okay.
I just,
So, yeah. So if you just feel that, right? So as you recognize that, okay, part of it's coming from a young part. Part of you feels like, oh, there's something beautiful here and it's being ignored by this group out there, and I want to go and get them to not ignore me.
yes,
Right? So that's one way that action manifests. And instead, right now, you're going, okay, so how is it for me to just recognize this young part, this painful young part that wanted her father to see her and didn't feel it. So there's this unmet need there.
What a discovery.
Hmm.
Thank you for helping the words.
Yeah, yeah. How is it to just see that? What happens when you see that?
There's this deep relaxation in the back behind the heart, and
Mhm.
like this depth of understanding,
Mm.
a depth of understanding just kind of peacefully enveloping my heart.
Okay. Uh-huh. Right. And as you feel that, right? I mean, this
Mhm.
is just in a few little minutes, but as you feel that, and you look at this situation with your neighbors now, like what would you do?
Not not beg to be let in. It's like there's not a lot of dignity in that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just let it be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's one thing to do.
That's one possibility. Mm-hmm.
And he's not the only person. There's another person. There's two other people that I know closely. And
Mm-hmm.
I doubt, I mean, they'll find a reason to keep me out. It's
Mm-hmm.
been done before. And then, it's like, do I want to be rejected again? Or do I want to just accept in my heart? It's like, am I not going to ask to be in this
Mm-hmm.
texting thing?
What would stop you just going and asking again?
Yeah. It seems like it would be okay. I mean, I know these other two people. I've known these people for 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, yeah, I don't imagine, I don't know. I can't imagine say, no, you can't be on it.
And if they do, they do.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah, that need to try to control it out there. So there's that
Okay.
impulse.
Okay. So good to spot that, right?
Yeah.
So for now, apart from what you actually will end up doing, it's just good to just keep exposing the layers, all the different things that are at play, shaping you going, well, I desperately want them to do something, and then no, I'm gonna just, why would I go and be rejected again? And then why, all these different moves. And all you need to do is just see, oh, okay, what's each one? What's making that happen? What's underlying that?
Yeah, that's
Uh-huh.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank-
great. Thanks, Naomi. Thanks for your great example. Hmm. Anyone else? Maybe one more. Yeah, it strikes me. The more we kind of look at it, the more like, feels to me like the more there is to see as you contemplate what do I need, what do I want to do or need to do, or what's my impulse to do, both the impulse itself and then where it's coming from. And then it's kind of into the flow. Like as that impulse changes or you think of different possibilities, like, okay, so what's that? What's making that happen? To do it in this very immediate, direct contact with your experience. It's, yeah, it seemed very, very lovely invitation. I would invite you to check it out and let me know what you find out about that. So we're kind of slowly coming to time here. So Michael has popped in the chat. Our next session is coming in on the 18th of June. It's the same Zoom link. So if you're watching this on Zoom, you can use the same link to join us next time. And you can check out the YouTube channel. I mentioned various of the past ones. So the one on problem solving, the one on flow and on being, the previous two of the sessions. So those are all good ones you could go and check out if you haven't seen them. And yeah, I'd like to thank you for coming along. Thank you for your interest in inquiry, your interest in this beautiful, mysterious, unfolding truth of your experience. And yeah, wishing
Thank
you
you very much.
well until next time.
Thank you very much, John.
Welcome
Thank you,
everyone.
Dawn. Bye.
Thank you. See you next time.
Then.